Hey guys, welcome to another edition of The Watch Collector, a very special edition. The reason why is because we've got an esteemed guest in Bernhard Lederer here at the Lansdowne. Thank you so much for joining us. It's an absolute pleasure for you to be with us. We're going to dive into a number of the models that so many of you will recognize, masterpieces I should say, that Bernhard and his team have created over the years. Before we do that, of course, the obligatory wristwatch check, and today I'm wearing the Laurent Ferrier Sport Auto. So many questions tend to be asked of manufacturers of horology. Mostly, the first question I think is, why have you actually got into this crazy artistic profession, vocation? And in talking to Bernhard, he mentioned one particular turning point. So it's slightly unusual. I'm actually going to read this out because when he read it to me initially in German, I don't speak German, and then we got it translated, it's something that really resonated with me. So bear with me. And this is an excerpt from a book by Ernst von Bassermann Jordan, first published in around the 1930s. And he goes, "My father started placing individual watches to my ear, contrasting their calm, matter-of-fact nature. He let me hear the differences between the scraping of the spindle movement, the proud swinging of the anchor movement, the rolling of the cylinder, and the jumping of the chronometer. And when a repeater watch even struck the hours for me, so my childhood experiences were just as strong as those of my adult years. And my father remained close to me, and if he were still by my side today." Tell us, Bernhard, what is that resonated so much with you?
It was the curiosity that brought me to a library where I looked around for watches about watchmaking, because I inherited a pocket watch from my grandfather and I wanted to know how it works inside, and I had the feeling that my curiosity will kill this watch. So, having the full respect to my grandfather and his pocket watch, I thought it might be a good idea first to read a little bit about those mechanisms and how they work. And this is why I opened this book, and I was reading about these different signatures of noise, what they give you, depending what is the escapement. And that sounded a little bit strange to me, and I wanted to find out if that is a nice fairy tale or if that is really truth. So I was 16, 17 years old, so I could not buy watches to test it, but I could go to flea markets and ask if I may wind up watches. So I was very soon well known by all the dealers on the flea markets, because I wound up, I listened here, I took the next one, I listened there, and I tried by comparison to find out if you really can find out which escapement is in a pocket watch just by listening to the symphony, to the melody of the escapement. It needs a bit of time, but I can tell you, yes, you can find it out, you can clearly tell which escapement is working in a watch when you get a little bit of that training.
I don't think I've ever heard an introduction like that, and I hope that it comes across to you as the viewers, because when Bernhard explains that to me, I can feel it coming from here, not from here, from here. What I'd like to do is I'd like to chart a bit of the journey of his work over the last 40 years more. We can't cover everything, of course, but there are some elements that I really do want to dive into. First of all, 1986 and the diplomat masterpiece. Tell us a little bit about the inspiration for that creation.
The inspiration comes from your country, from the UK. I'm still, and I very much was fascinated by skeleton clocks. And by skeleton clocks because you can see the beauty of the mechanism. And I wanted to show the beauty of mechanic working pieces, and so I've chosen this theme, and I made a British skeleton clock. And there was just a request to make one thing more people talk about complication. I don't like that word because it means in Germany complicate, and watches should not be complicated. So they wanted to have one additional feature in that watch beside of showing the time. And as I thought, this will be my masterpiece, it must be on the level of mastering your profession. So as I told you and as we learned, my fascination are the escapements. The first I thought about is what kind of escapement I can put to that skeleton clock. And I thought the best is a gravity escapement. You have a very well known here in the Big Ben. Mine is a little bit smaller and not that complicated, but I had to make my own gravity escapement. What I did, and so that was designed, that was reflected, and I thought, oh, still there's time. So should make a little bit still something more. So I made I don't know the real word, a real perpetual calendar. So not only this calendar, what we all know, that every 400 years he makes every 4 years he corrects the February, but you have to know that all 400 years you have another correction. So in the year 2100 we will have no February 29th, neither in 2200 nor in 2300, but again in 2400. So every full centenary it will be dropped, but when you can divide it by 4, then exceptional it will be. And this continues for the next 3200 years, that system, and then again you have to make 1 day correction. This my mechanism does not do. But it's a calendar mechanism for the next 3200 years, showing you perfectly what is the day and the date.
If there's a better way to start, I'm not quite sure that it's possible to find it. That's incredible. And of course, you will see the running theme of your fascination with escapements as we go through the chronology of Lederer. So let's move then to another massive project that you were involved with, and this was in 1996, and this was in Brazil. Tell us a little bit about that, please.
The Brazil project is a very typical one because it's not my profession, that has at the end nothing to do with what I learned making pocket watches, wristwatches, restore and repair grandfather clocks or things like that. But it is typical because someone called me and said, we have a problem. We have an idea, we have a project, but everybody tells us it is not possible to do it. And this is the most easy way to get me fascinated. This is my weak point. There you can put your finger on, that's the trigger point for me. Therefore I looked to that project and I thought it's really, really fascinating. Because the design is a huge monumental clock who had to have a sender second hand, where the sender second hand is around 4 meters long. And the idea was not to have a counterweight. So imagine you have a second hand 4 meters long, so it must be somehow a little bit a solid structure. And therefore you have a surface where the storms of the open sea, because it was for Brazil, for the harbor where Cabral landed, there they wanted to install that clock.
And I should say that this was to celebrate the 500-year anniversary of Brazil being discovered.
Yeah. So you talk about the background, I talk about the problem of the clock.
Exactly. That's why you're the expert, and very happy to hear it.
Yeah, and that was the challenge, because when you have storm and strong wind, you have to assure that the second hand is moving through the storm and not that the storm is pulling back the second hand, or when it's going down that it's not accelerating and so on. So you have to invent a mechanism who is forcing even such a big second hand fighting against the natural things, what like strong winds and storms, and so that was the difficulty, and it was not that easy to find the solution, but like normally you have to forget the project and think about other things, and suddenly I had the idea. I made some drawings and I was sure, yeah, that will work. So I'm a watchmaker, yeah? I'm not an engineer, so I addressed to an engineer office. They calculated the thickness of the axis and everything, and I had then the idea how to overcome the problem with the counterweight, and yeah, at the end we built one mechanism, a huge machine. We made the whole installation for that project and built it up in Porto Seguro, the place where Cabral landed more than 500 years ago. And it was planned to make Porto Seguro, Rio de Janeiro and São Paulo. 3 clocks had been ordered, and when the first had been inaugurated, it was live on the screen on New Year's Eve. So at midnight, this was the watch for whole Brazil to make the countdown.
Wow!
And that was such a huge success that they decided to have that for each of their counties. Each capital received one of those clocks. So instead of 3, I had to make a lot more. And instead of being 3 months in Brazil, I had been there for 1.5 years. So amazing time. I don't want to miss it, but I'm happy that it's over.
It sounds absolutely incredible. And again, not only the fascination with escapements, but the fascination with finding solutions.
Yes.
Which leads me nicely on to the next topic I want to talk about, and that is when I asked Bernhard before making this video about this particular watch, which is the 100,000 Gauss watch, which was made by the German Navy. And that was extremely fascinating to me. So again, please explain, how did that come about? Because I think viewers are going to want to know.
Yeah, I just heard that the German Navy was looking around to have for their very special diver squad, that they needed a diving watch what will not déclencher, will not trigger the sea mines, and that therefore they search something what is non-magnetic. And as I have no idea, and electricity and electronic, that is really not mine. This is for quartz watches, but I'm the mechanic guy. And so I said it's easy, they should address to Omega. They make a watch with 15,000 Gauss, and very quickly people explained me that it's not what they look for. They look for a watch what you cannot turn into a magnet, what you cannot magnetize. And Omega you can magnetize. It will continue working, but it will be a magnet by itself. And this will then activate the sea mine when you dive there. And this unique experience, this is what they do not want to have. And so again, there was the reflection, oh, that's interesting, because it's not normal, it's not common, that is challenging to find a way to make a watch what you cannot magnetize. It was already made long time ago. In Russian was the tradition to make watches from wood, and the hairspring from bamboo.
Wow.
You cannot magnetize this watch, but they needed something really precise. So that was not in question. So we had to invent and to develop a complete movement where you have no magnetism at all. And we made it, I guess, and I would like to say a little bit in my way. So we made it extreme, so extreme that the institute that has to control each and every item, if it fits, that it will not become a magnet, they have to control it. And when they received the first movement, they called up the service for their control machines.
Wow.
They thought that the machine controlling that there is no magnetism was failing, was not an order. So the company came, they controlled it, said, yeah, no, all is fine. And they said, it's not possible because that movement shows zero. It shows no chance to magnetize it. So that was a quite interesting compliment for us. And we improved that, giving this watch then to a super magnet who is in Belgium, where it had been tested for 100,000 Gauss. That's unbelievable strong magnetic fields. So when you have the belt, you really feel pulled towards the magnet. It is extremely strong. And they also have the device to measure then, and yes, the movement picked a little bit, it took a little bit magnetism. What was possible for them on their control device, but I can tell you it's 0 point, and then we have 4 or 5 times a 0 before the first number appears. So that is hundreds of natural variation what our Earth has as magnetism. So really unimportant, and that will not trigger any sensor on the seaman.
That's incredible, and that takes us up to 2016. But I should say that Bernhard gave me a little bit of a tidbit of information from another manufacturer who did in fact make a piece anti-magnetic, IWC. Can you tell us a little about the story behind that and how what they originally did and why they weren't approached thereafter?
When we finished our project, someone told me that he thinks it's quite weird because IWC in the 50s, 70s, they made already for the German Navy a watch for the divers. And so I wondered why they did not again offer their service. And as I knew a few people at IWC, I called them up, I met with them, and I said, tell me, what went wrong? Why you did not, it was not interesting for you to repeat what you already made? And they said, yeah, it would have been. But you know, the guy who made it in that time, he received the letter from the army that he is a porteur, that he carries military secret. So he had no right to make any notes, to tell anybody what he made, which material he used to have those movements made, what they in that time delivered to the German Navy. So they simply, not knowing what had been made, could not offer the service as they had other plans, so there was no time and no history.
Amazing. So basically, after this video, once you've watched it, it will self-destruct within 5 seconds to make sure to maintain confidentiality. I think we've set the scene. You can see that Bernhard is absolutely at the top of his game. Let's bring it up to 2021, when you received the Innovation Award at GPHG, and that was for your Central Impulse Chronometer, which again, that really is the base of which is, of course, the fascination with escapements. Tell us a little bit about the genesis of that and bringing it to fruition in 2021.
The genesis is that I thought that for my company that had been working for international watch companies, making watch movement designs, that I need a showpiece. Because when you make the design for other companies by contract, you do not exist. No? Just as an example, if you make something for Rolex, it's Rolex that made it. If you make something for Patek, it's of course Patek themselves who made it. You do not exist. So you have a slight difficulty to offer your service when you cannot talk about what you made already. So I thought I have the good idea to make an escapement. Nobody is interested in escapements, but it's good as a showpiece. No? And things went different. We made the watch for the German Navy, we made other projects, and we had been so full with work that the project for the Central Impulse was a little bit staying in the drawer. The reason why at all I've chosen this escapement again is my need to be challenged. I need this trigger, and the trigger you find in the books of George Daniels. It is his invention, the independent double wheel escapement, what he used in the well-known Space Traveler 1 and Space Traveler 2. And he is writing that he thinks that this is the best escapement you can imagine. But unfortunately, never ever possible to put it into a wristwatch. And this, unfortunately, never ever, this is my trigger word. And therefore I said, I will look, I will try it. I want to see if this never ever is really a never ever, or maybe once, yes. And this is why I've chosen this. Now at the end, yes, we could prove it is possible to put it into a wristwatch. At the beginning, I was happy to put it to a 44mm case, because the big master told never ever. So happy already with those dimensions, but then seeing it working, having a base for more deeper analysis, then I could see clearly, yeah, we can make the movement still smaller, and therefore we have now here the 39mm of the Central Impulse Chronometer.
Which was launched in 2024, and this is being shot in January 2025, so they are brand new. And I imagine the work of going from a 44 to a 39mm case, when you've already gone through that kind of development, was significant.
That was not easy. We had to redesign one part completely. So the double constant force mechanism, what we have in all those in the 44 and in the 39, there we have those two remontoirs d'égalité, what means a constant force mechanisms, and this is the only watch that exists that is working with two identical constant force mechanisms, and they even nivellate themselves. So we have a really very, very constant energy flow, what is reason why we showed the performance of that movement by going back to 44mm and to certify it at 4 control institutes. So we have the COSC, and we have 3 observatories. Therefore we call it the triple certified observatory chronometer, and that's what you see behind of you.
Yes.
And that is for nothing more than to show that this escapement, like Daniels had the idea, we put it on the next level, having it really in a perfect, stable way, showing its performance, and this we prove by thus giving it from one institute to the next, to the next, and to the next, to see that at the end of the whole procedure, you are still as precise as on the beginning, to show to those people who tell this all the certification, COSC and stuff is only a picture of one moment. Maybe with other brands, I cannot judge this, but I wanted to show that our watches, they keep this regularity over months and months, and this shown and proved by the most prestigious observatories what we have in Europe, and that was there the challenge, and we got it very successful.
And of course won another GPHG award 3 months or so ago.
For the chronometry.
For chronometry,
yeah,
exactly.
To show that chronometry today matters, even if you have all the cell phones and the accurate time there. But to have the beauty of the mechanism on this level, this still is a really nice toy for big boys.
It's not a nice toy, it's a beautiful toy for big boys. And you'll see just how it fills the case back. And it's the way you have the dome sapphire crystal encasing it. There's of course been much malignment of other manufacturers coming out with new models with movements that don't fill the case back. This one absolutely does, and if you get a chance to look at it, you must get a loop because it is spectacular. So we've touched on the reduction of 44 down to 39, and that's a trend in the watch industry in terms of the reduction of diameter of watches. What's next for Lederer? Are you able to tell us?
Yes, I will not go to details, but you know, this whole story and my fascination for escapements brought me to the idea to launch historic important movements, important developments, important inventions that are under the risk to fall into forgotten. And I think it's worth to show them, to bring them to the spotlight, and to put them to the wrist of all those who are looking for the real watchmaking. You know, I love what other brands do with complications. Now I use the word complications, but this is all based around of the same driving engine. And this I like to compare with the very, very solid, very reliable Mercedes-Benz diesel engine. But just imagine you have your Aston Martin, you have your Rolls-Royce, you have your Lamborghini, Maserati, Ferrari. They all have the same solid, reliable Mercedes-Benz diesel engine. I think a lot of pleasure and fun would be missing. And this is unfortunately what you find in the watch industry.
It's true.
And I think every watch collector deserves to at least have the choice to say, I want to have a little bit more than just the standard Swiss lever escapement. And here we go, and therefore the next will be historically very important reanimation of a historic important escapement. The third one is already in the testing phase. The fourth is already designed and in big scale preparation, because that we really have to learn. It's something completely new that is not based on a historic one. And we will at least have 5 different escapements during the years.
Wow.
But it takes time, it takes a lot of efforts,
Yep.
but it also shows that we make watchmaking as I understood it when I decided I want to become a watchmaker. And that means to make it really from the center, to be at the heart of the watch. And therefore that is a little bit my lifetime, that is my career in watchmaking, and we will crown it just with a collection of what I feel. Maybe other people will feel it different, but what I feel are the most important steps in going forward to precise timekeeping.
I think blown away is probably the best way I can describe this. Perfection, pursuit of and attaining, creating not only beautiful but functional watches, to an attention to detail that, let's face it, very little, if in no other watchmaker has achieved. Bernhard, an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much for taking us through that, a whistle-stop tour of your incredible career and what you're creating right now. An absolute pleasure. Thank you. Guys, that's the end of this episode. Thank you so much for watching us. We'll see you next time.
And I have to say thank you for all those nice questions, and that you digged so deep into my past.
Most
That's
welcome.
rare to find, and thank you for all.
Not at all.
Yep.
It's been an absolute pleasure. Thanks for
It's
watching.
mine.
We'll see you next time.
Thank you.